Hello and welcome to the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, where stories become lessons and every journey has something to teach us. Every week I sit down with people from all walks of life to hear their adventures, explore their experiences, and uncover the insights that have shaped them along the way. Whether it's from the outdoors, the classroom, or any other path, each conversation offers a fresh perspective on learning, growth, and what it means to truly connect with the world and the people around us. And on this week's episode of the Outdoorsy Educator podcast, we have Tim Bennett. Tim, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Alistair. And thank you for connecting and inviting me on the podcast. And my current trail name is Porky, for those who may be interested in trail names. And there's quite a story behind that, but I'd rather, see what it is you would like to discuss, and maybe we'll
Well,
land there as part of
I
it.
I would love that to hear about that. One of my favorite things is learning about trail names because, and we'll get into this. Hiking is amazing for this, the scenery and the actual act of hiking and this, that, and the other. But it's the people, right? It's the people that
Agreed.
really make this something. And what better place to start with than why Porky? Where did this name come from?
Well, doing some long section hikes on the AT a few years back, I was given a different trail name. I have a fondness for beer, and sometimes I would show up and meet a group of through hikers that I would try and catch for a week at a time, and I always showed up with beer. So they gave me the trail name 12 Pack, and I was hoping for something more profound, but that kind of stuck, and I got used to that. But in 2022, I retired and set out to tackle the number one item on my post-retirement bucket list, and that was to hike the Long Trail in Vermont.
hmm
And I had heard stories from my father when I was growing up that he had hiked it. What I didn't realize is that he kept a trail journal, and he hiked it at 18 years old in 1937. So
Wow.
one of my siblings found the trail journal and gave it to me, and he was obsessed with porcupines, or porkies, as he wrote over and over in his journal. And in the 20s, 30s, actually up until the late 1950s, the Long Trail was overpopulated with porcupines. All the natural
Right.
predators were gone, and the porcupines were doing great damage to the shelters. And the guidebooks up until the 1980s suggested that you kill all porcupines on site and dispose of the bodies so that they don't create a nuisance. But at any rate, in this journal, in this very short journal of his hike, um, he talked about porkies over and over again. And because this was a hike to honor a legacy, I changed my trail name. I know some people don't agree with giving yourself a name, but it was to honor that legacy. So I'm Porky.
I can't think of a better reason for any trail name, let alone just giving yourself one, than
Yeah.
honoring your father and the legacy that he created on a trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
that's that's just perfect. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your hiking background? You've mentioned the long trail, and I'd love to talk about that, but the AT, other trails, where did your love for hiking start, and what has it manifested itself into?
Well, um, as a young teenager in the Boy Scouts and through my father's love of the outdoors. I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia, so not exactly great outdoor opportunities right there, but through the Boy Scouts and just connection with camping and hiking. Actually, my first backpacking trip was on the Appalachian Trail in Pennsylvania in 1974. So over 50 years ago. And from there, actually backpacked different sections of the AT. The idea of through hiking or long distance hiking wasn't on my radar at 18 years old, like my father had been. But started hiking. There's a lot of great under the radar trails in Pennsylvania that are really scenic, really rugged. The Black Forest Trail, the Chuck Kuiper Trail, the Loyalsock Trail. There are several. And I was an aspiring photographer. So back in the starting in the
Mm-hmm.
late 70s through the 80s and into the 90s, I carried large format camera equipment to take photographs for calendar companies and magazines, uh, carrying more camera equipment than camping gear.
Right. Hey, you've got to follow our passions. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that age, I was either strong enough or foolish enough to do that kind of thing.
Could be both.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I made enough money to just keep buying more film. So I sold enough that was more a passion project than a career path. But I ended up working in medical photography for an entire career. So still a lifelong photographer. But through those backpacking experiences, then I started branching out and doing wilderness canoe tripping, Canada, Maine, and life gets in the way. So I couldn't take months off at a time, a week here, a week there,
Mm-hmm.
and actually moved a little bit away from backpacking until several years before retirement. Uh, had this on a day hike, climbed Mount Mansfield in Vermont, and had this epiphany like, I'm going to hike the long trail when I retire. Uh, and knowing some of what's involved and having done it for several years, I was determined to not be the characters in a lot of the books out there that roll off the couch unprepared. So I knew enough to know that I needed to update my gear, get in shape. So I actually spent over 3 years training to do the long trail. And it might offend some people, but I used the AT as my training ground for the
Right. It's
long
kind of
trail.
flip-flopped from what a lot of people might
Yeah,
do. Yeah.
yeah. And so, in a nutshell, that's uh, kind of it. And I would tag along periodically with actually some very young friends that were through hiking the AT. And I'd get a call and say, "Hey, come meet us," and so I would spend a week with them, and until my 60 plus year old body couldn't hang with them anymore. I could hang with them for maybe 5 days
Mm-hmm.
before the wheels started coming off. And
Right.
usually what I do is if I had more time, I'd come off the trail, take a zero, pick up some trail magic, drive ahead of them and hike southbound until I ran into them again and spend a couple days. So that was actually a really fun exercise. And so my love and passion for uh, backpacking came back. I mean, all through the years I'd been hiking, day hiking and
Right.
um, snowshoeing, cross country skiing, wilderness paddling. So I never lost that love for the outdoors. It's just that I hadn't been backpacking for several decades and
Mm-hmm.
um, realized that I really missed it. And in fact, I miss
Right.
it right now. I wish I were on the trail. Well, though it's pretty hot right
You'll
now here
believe you
in
me.
Pennsylvania. Yeah,
I just got out my car and the temperature gauge read 96 degrees, and it's like it's people talk about seasonal depression, and I always joke
yeah,
that it's the opposite down here in
yeah,
Texas because we're stuck inside for months, is
yeah,
what it feels like.
yep,
I'd be
yep.
remiss if I didn't ask you because I simply don't know, but I just must ask you quickly. Medical photography, what is that?
Um, and that's the short title.
Yeah.
So I worked in ophthalmology, which is related to eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the diagnostic testing in ophthalmology is based on imaging. And back in the day, it was all film-based photography. So I spent a whole career
Ah,
photographing eyeballs and surgical procedures and uh, things for clinical trials and research
Gotcha.
projects. And in ophthalmology, they use photographs much like many other specialties use X-rays or MRIs. So it was a fun career. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine that that could be one of those careers where you never do exactly the same thing a couple of days in a row.
Well, it can
Or
get
it can get
pretty routine.
it
Yeah.
can get routine. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a world I know nothing about.
Yeah.
And before we get on to something else, you've mentioned obviously the long trail and hiking it and the journal. What was kind of the timeline of, did you always know this journal existed, or when did you said your sibling
No,
found it?
that's
What was
that's what
the gap?
I I didn't know until I
Right.
had already had this epiphany, like, I'm going to hike the long trail. And um, that particular day when I had that epiphany, I was hiking with my adult daughter and her fiance.
Hmm.
And I just told her, I said, your grandfather sat on top of this mountain way back when. And so she thought it was kind of cool. And I announced to other members of my family. And that's when my brother said, "Oh, well, great. You can use his journal to, you know, sort of follow in his footsteps." And I was like, "Journal? What journal?" And everyone assumed it had been handed down to me because I'm the only one in the family that really shared that same passion for the outdoors. And I insisted I had never seen it. And that's when my brother said, "Well, don't you remember all the, you know, how many porcupines he killed
Right.
and all the mention of porkies?" And so there was this family scavenger hunt. Everybody went looking, and my one sister found it in a box of uh, family heirlooms and memorabilia and sent it to me. And it was truly a treasure. I mean, it very short, very sparse. He was 18 years old, clearly had a miserable time. Between rain and bugs and porcupines and uh, packs that started out at 60 pounds,
Right.
but ended up in the 20-pound range by the time he and his high school buddy finished the section they did. Um, so yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's, finding the journal was great for me, and I thought this is going to be fantastic.
I
And
just picture, I'm sure you've read and or seen the movie A Walk in the Woods. And
yes,
what was the chap's name? Kat, Bill Bryson's friend,
yeah,
where he just starts launching things because the pack he had was just was just ridiculously heavy.
yeah. I
Yeah.
remember a moment tossing some uh, back in the '80s, some stiff leather hiking boots
Hmm.
after a 3-day torture hike of the old loggers path in Pennsylvania, and the boots fit too tight, and I launched them into the woods, and my hiking buddy went and got them and said, "You're going to want these." I never wore
Right.
them again, but we really, we didn't want to leave them in the woods.
Well, talking
um,
about equipment weight, I mean, I would love to just photography. I mean, we all now have a camera in our pocket, essentially, and people, I'd do this too. We want to take pictures to share them online. What does your photography equipment look like these days compared to, say, 30 years ago?
I use my iPhone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I was carrying a separate high quality point and shoot digital camera for a couple of years. And when that malfunctioned, I thought, all right, I'm going to replace it. It's waterproof, it's shockproof. There are some things about it I really like. And in the interim, that model was discontinued, and the Olympus was the one I was using. And the new ones had jumped quite a bit in price. And I'm thinking,
Hmm.
well, instead of buying a new camera, I'm just going to put that money and upgrade my phone, and never looked back. And
Yeah.
there are some limitations if I want to publish high quality photos, but the creativity, the freedom of not carrying heavy camera equipment, the spontaneity. I mean, if you carry it, you'll use it. And so I use a phone, and it's liberating.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a digital SLR, DSLR that's 10-ish years old now. And it's a great camera. Nothing bad to say about it, but it's clunky compared, And by the time I got it out, the thing that I want to take the picture of is inevitably gone because it was usually
Yeah.
an animal, something I had to capture in that moment.
Yeah. And I have no shortage of similar camera equipment, a
Yeah,
digital SLR and lenses, but for backpacking and for most things now, it's so convenient,
yeah,
and the weight savings is, I mean, you're using it as your GPS device. If you're navigating, you're using it to stay connected with the world. And uh, the problem for me is keeping it charged because I do take so many photos.
yes, yeah. Running out of storage is always something that's it's something I need to be aware of because,
Yeah.
like you, I'm sure I'll take 100 pictures, maybe use 10, and
Hmm.
that I think that's probably all of us.
Yeah. And
Something I love to talk about with guests is yes, the hiking and the mechanics of hiking, but the sort of life lessons it's taught you being on the trail and what lessons you've taken and applied to your day-to-day life, family, work, that kind of thing.
well, I think in order to get there, for the lessons that I've learned specifically on the long trail, uh, I need I'd like to share a little more of my story
Oh,
because
please, please.
it's hard to believe.
Right.
So I hit the long trail as planned, was cruising. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
65 years old, but I was not Bill Bryson. I was not Cheryl Strayed where I came off the couch.
Mm-hmm.
That year, I had 500 miles on the AT before I started the long trail.
Right.
So cruising along, having the time of my life, yeah, the expression "living your best life," that
Mm-hmm.
was me.
Great.
And I was actually blogging for the Trek at the time, so I was writing.
Okay.
When I take a zero, I'd try and find a computer and post a story. And I got to, so the first 100 miles of the long trail runs concurrent with the AT in Vermont. So they follow the same corridor. And my father's hike had started right there where the long trail and the AT split back in 1937. So I got there, figured that was just a warm up for the real hike.
Mm-hmm.
I looked over his journal. I adjusted my mileage back for the first few days because he was covering short days with heavy packs in a trail that was still fairly primitive. Um, but I went into town,
Mm-hmm.
posted a story. There's a free bus that runs there's a place called the Inn at Long Trail. And both AT and Long Trail hikers use it. And I went back to the trail. My backpack was sitting in their woodshed. All I had to do was cross the road, pick up my backpack, and start following his footsteps. I didn't make it across the road. I got hit by a car at high speed.
Goodness.
And I'm fortunate to be alive. I mean,
Right.
it was one of the. I mean, I remember it and quite well. Um, so several broken bones, broke my leg. I couldn't walk. Uh, but I'm this. Some people look at me in disbelief when I say this. I'm laying there in the road,
Mm-hmm.
and my first thought was, "Am I going to make it?" My next thought was, "Yes. How soon can I get back on the trail?"
Right.
And I am not making that up.
Right. I
Well,
would be in disbelief, but I kind of get it. We're cut from the same cloth.
yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
why here? Why now? Another 50 feet, and I would be starting the hike my father took. But it was a year of hospitals, surgeries, recovery, infections, and I couldn't drive for several months. But once I could, I started hiking every day. And so one of the lessons, a long-winded way to get to this particular lesson, and you hear other hikers talk about it and books written about it, is the healing that can occur in nature and
Hmm.
in the woods. and I embraced that and hiked every day. And the medical personnel that were guiding my recovery were amazed. They're like, at your age, we can't believe you're bouncing back like this. Um, so that was, and often people talk about the emotional or mental health healing that
Hmm.
occurs in nature, but this was physical healing, and I'm a bit of a skeptic. I mean, I worked in academic medical centers all my life, and the idea of the forest bestowing some magical power and helping you heal, but there's science behind it.
Right,
And
right.
so when I couldn't walk, I read up on that. And so now I'm a believer that time spent outdoors, time spent in nature is incredibly healing, physically as well as mentally. So that's the number one lesson I learned. Um,
I love that. I've spoken to quite a few people who've talked about the mental health aspects. We're all a believer in
yeah,
that. But this is new for me, really talking about, I don't want to say it sped up your recovery. I mean, I don't put words in your mouth,
I,
but it certainly aided it where other places couldn't. Perhaps I
yeah,
don't know.
I, I question those same things,
Right,
and but I'm a believer.
right. In
I'm,
whatever it may be. Yeah.
yeah, and so there are some other lessons, um, it, and I'll explain. So I got back on the
Please.
trail, and it kicked my ass. So
Right.
I was more than prepared a year before. I trained, I hiked every day. I couldn't carry a pack for months because my one shoulder had multiple surgeries on it. But when I finally got the all clear and got back on the trail, I was in shape, but not like I had been the year before.
Right.
And the difficulty goes way up the further north you go on the long trail, and by an order of magnitude.
Hmm.
And even though I was in hiking and backpacking shape, it kicked my ass.
Right.
Um, and it was a struggle. I had to sort of give myself a pep talk occasionally, and but knowing at that point I was following in my father's footsteps, there was um, it kept me going.
That's deep,
And
deep motivation. Yeah.
yeah, and it took a while before I felt a connection with him. And I think I needed to face that adversity before I was going to connect. So that's a lesson looking back. Um, but then, and you can't make this up, I swear to you. Um, I got to Camel's Hump, which played a big role in his journal. Um, And so that's one of the 4,000-foot peaks on the long trail. And it's iconic. So every Vermonter knows the outline of Camel's Hump. And uh, before crossing it, some thunderstorms rolled in.
Hmm.
So I stopped at it's basically a cabin, Montclair Glen. And the rain didn't stop for a couple of days. When I was able to pull up a forecast, it was catastrophic flooding. Don't go anywhere. Um, it was it, it was historic flooding in Vermont that year, and unfortunately, there was a hiker my age on the AT. His trail name Steady Eddie, and this was in 2022. Passed away trying to ford a stream. He was about
Wow.
50 miles behind where I was. So I was trapped for a couple of days in a very secure location, but I couldn't move. And then when it broke, um, I was able to get to the next road crossing, and I was planning a double zero anyhow. Um, it occurred to me that the universe might be telling me that. So I completed the section my father had, but I was planning to continue on and do the whole trail. And it seemed to me that the universe was saying, all right, you got hit by a car last year, catastrophic flooding now. Maybe it's time to give it a rest. And they briefly, the Green Mountain Club briefly rerouted the trail, some of it onto roads to avoid some of the river valley stuff. And I wanted nothing to do with hiking roads,
Right.
given my history. So I had an opportunity to catch a ride home, and I did. And actually went out and did a little bit of the CDT,
Hmm.
which I found way easier
Right.
than the long trail, and got some of my confidence back. And a few weeks later, I went back and finished the trail.
Nice.
So one of
Excellent.
the lessons is that the universe did its best to make me give up,
Yeah.
if not kill me. Um, and but I was determined to do it. And then I struggled with the question, why? Why did I feel compelled to go back? And it took some time after the fact, in retrospect, and actually writing about it before I came to understand my own motivations. So um, that was a big lesson learned. Uh, it, and one of the things I've written a couple of times, I was prepared for the trail,
Hmm.
but not the journey. It
I love
it
that. Now, would you classify it as an emotional journey or spiritual journey? That kind of journey?
spiritual, yes, in some ways. I'm not the most spiritual person, but there were forces at work
Right.
that I clearly didn't understand. There are so many coincidences, and I could go on for quite a while, um, that are hard to explain, you know,
Yeah.
otherwise. So acknowledging that spiritual part of the journey was an important part of it, and understanding what drove me. And I guess the ultimate lesson is, despite the adversity, I wouldn't change a thing, even getting hit by the car, because if that had not happened, I would not have found the connection that I did. I mean, with my father, and writing
Right.
about it was very cathartic, and so I blogged for the Trek for quite a while. But then once I finished, there was like a lot of through hikers. Now this was less than 300 miles, but it was 14 months worth of constant, effort.
Right. Yes.
And once that was done, I had that loss of purpose that a lot of people talk about with
Yeah.
completing a through hike. And what filled that void was writing about it.
I love it.
And
And let's talk a little bit about that because later this year you've got some big things happening. I've been looking through your website, one mountain after another.
correct. And so I've written about this journey,
Hmm.
including the accident and recovery and getting back on the trail. And it it's been fun. My initial thought was, oh, I've got 20 blogs up on the Trek. I'll just glue them together and call it a book.
Right.
And then I started going to some writing workshops, and the frowns on people's faces when they're like, you'll end up sharing that story with, you know, your family and friends, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I took classes, workshops, worked with a writing coach to um, sort of do things the right way. And you and I briefly talked about other authors like Derek Lugo, and
Hmm.
reading things like that uh, gave me confidence that I had a real story to tell. And
Right.
so I've done that. And the title, One Mountain After Another, is based on a line in my father's journal.
Oh, I
So,
love that.
yeah, I had some other ideas, and I just decided, you know what? He talked about one section um, being it's called the Monroe Skyline, this one stretch of the long trail. Um, but he used the line. It was probably the most profound, closest thing to a profound line in an 18-year-old trail journal. So I took the title and based it on that. Um, and it also includes some retrospects, some of the characters I met on the trail, um, and there's some humor. Uh, there's actually some humor with the accident and
Right.
my uh, adventures in the emergency room in Rutland, Vermont. The banter with the emergency room physician that took care of me because I had worked in medical centers my entire career. Um, we just hit it off, and uh, it hurt to laugh, but I ended up laughing a bit once I knew I was in the clear for the most part. I knew there'd be a long road to
Hmm.
recovery, but there's quite a bit of humor. There's some trail wisdom.
Hmm.
Uh, there's because I was retracing my father's 1937 footsteps. I've included history of the trail a little bit and what it was like in his day, and finding some supporting information to back that up. So I coordinated a little bit with the Green Mountain Club. I had them
Hmm.
take a look at things that I wanted to make sure were accurate from their perspective. And they have some great online historical archives that I use to sort of fill in the gaps in my father's journal. So it's got a little bit of everything. It's got hiking, humor, knowledge, history, and it's all uh, sort of glued together by this unexpected journey.
I love that. I mean, I can't wait for it to come out and read this book because I mean, this and no disrespect to them, there's many how-to trail guides, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
what this is. This is a personal connection, and I think on some level that's what we're all looking for, especially when we're reading. Can we connect with the author and feel like we're on this journey with them? And it sounds like
Yes.
that's what this is. So, if you'd be so gracious, I'm very excited to offer, can you come back near the end of the year and let's, dig
Yeah,
into this book when it comes out?
absolutely. I'd be honored.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be just wonderful. I do have three questions I would like to ask you,
Okay.
as I ask every guest. We all want to be successful, whatever that means. And I was curious how you would define success in your own life, and how maybe that has changed throughout the years.
Hmm.
Yeah,
How much time do we have,
right.
Alasdair? No,
We,
um, I'm kidding.
yeah.
Yeah. I One of the things, and I would have said this before this
Mm-hmm.
hike as well, that um, life throws you curveballs. It's what you do about it
Yeah,
that matters. So I see success as being able to overcome adversity.
I love it.
And yeah, and that's true whether it's career, school, through hike, whatever that may
Mm-hmm.
be. And I mean, I was very successful in my career. I taught, um, I lectured, uh, became almost by default an authority on uh, the field that I worked in,
Mm-hmm.
because it was interesting to me. So I was very successful in that and recognized in that field. But adversity plays a big role in and overcoming that can take you a long way.
And that I think that's something every one of us can relate to.
Agreed.
Um, I'm always curious. I used to ask people about their favorite book, but I've actually changed that to a book that has been particularly impactful on your life. If I ask you about something you've read that has really made a difference, is there a book that might jump out at you?
The first thing that popped into my head
Yes.
is actually an old classic.
Right?
Jack Jack London's The Call of the Wild. The idea of adventure. So growing up, being, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years old and reading about adventure uh, is something that has always been there for me. And so that's the first thing that popped into my head. There's some
I
great,
love it.
through hiking books out
Hmm.
there. And uh, I have to admit, I haven't read as much as I would like right now because I spent so much time writing and in some ways didn't want that reading to influence what I was putting on the page. Um, but I have read several through hiking memoirs. But but really, if I go back, a sense of adventure and Call of the Wild.
I love that. And you brought up our mutual friend Derek Lugo. That's something he actually mentioned to me when he's writing. He doesn't read anything about hiking because, and I don't want to misquote him here, but I think they could sort of bleed together almost. You would unintentionally
Agreed.
take ideas. So yeah, he has to put those to one
Right.
side.
Yeah, and I purposely did that until I had a complete draft of the book.
Hmm.
And then it was important to, from the publishing side of it, know what comparable titles are out there. And
Right.
so that's was part of my education. And so then I went and reread several books I'd read before, and also including Dirk's The Unlikely Through Hiker. And I got through the first couple chapters of A Fabulous Through Hike,
Yes.
um, and I need to finish that up.
It's
But I'm
you
able
won't
to read
regret
again
it.
now. But for a
Good.
while, I purposely kept through hiking books at arm's length.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think from what I can tell, that's a very good thing to do.
yeah.
Well, speaking of hiking, if it wasn't blazing hot outside, it was perfect hiking weather, and you could go for a day hike with anybody in the world. This could be somebody you know, don't know, dead, alive, famous, not famous. If you could go hiking for a day hike and pick somebody's brain, talk to them, learn from them, who's somebody that you might like to get on the trail with?
So this may be cheating a little bit,
Yeah, go for
but
it.
um, so on the AT right now in the whites is Dale Sanders is hiking. He's his trail name is Graybeard, and he's 91 years old, and he's trying to reclaim the record as the oldest person to hike the entire AT in a single year. He held
Wow.
it once before, and then his friend Nimble Nomad took the record, and they're buddies. And so Dale is quite a character. I've met him twice.
Hmm.
I caught up with him when he passed through Pennsylvania. I hiked 5 miles with him, and we had a conversation that was needs to be continued. So,
Right.
and that's why I say by cheating, it's somebody that I've walked a few miles with, and it was funny because he's a bit of a celebrity, and
Right.
people gush over the fact that he's in his 90s and hiking the AT. And I had met him at the Appalachian Long Distance Hikers Association
Hmm.
gathering last year. I saw him speak and talked to him a little bit. Um, but we're on the trail, we're having a conversation, and he's polite and he's tolerating me.
Right.
But then we had this moment of connection. I knew the secret password. So he holds the current record. He held this twice too, as the oldest person to canoe the entire length of the Mississippi River. And we just started talking about that. And I asked about his canoe. I knew what brand it was. And he says, well, you
Right.
know who designed that? And I did know who designed it.
Ah, so it
And
gives you some, yeah.
that was the secret password. And he opened up and we had a conversation. And he asked me to lead the way, and he was right behind me, making me go really fast.
Right.
And I said, well, there's the road right there to where his crew was waiting for him. And he's like, how we get here that fast?
Right.
Our conversation.
Yeah,
So being able to have that connection with somebody, and he's a hero to me.
I love it.
And he's a few hundred miles from completing that journey.
That's incredible. I
So
can't wait to read about this journey upon completion.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
So,
And if people would like to reach out to you, find out more about your upcoming book, about hiking, photography, anything we've talked about today, what's the best way for people to reach you or get hold of you?
well, you can look me up on. I'm fairly active on Facebook and some of the AT hiking groups. So just look up Tim Bennett, or my website is longtrailhiker.com.
Perfect.
And feel free to reach out there. There's contact info, and um, I enjoy sharing stories and talking about hiking. And I've done. Lost my earbud there for a
Oh, you're
second.
good?
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully I've done a handful of presentations. So for the AT Museum,
Mm-hmm.
the Alda Gathering last year, I plan to be at Trail Days this coming year, and similar things like that. So look for me there as well.
Awesome. Well, I am planning on getting back to Trail Days this coming year, so I look forward to shaking your hand there. Tim Bennett, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'll consider this part one of two. I look forward to
Perfect.
continuing the conversation later in the year. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alistair. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you again to this week's guest, and I hope today's episode was as enjoyable for you as it was for me, and perhaps even inspired your next adventure. If you did enjoy the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find more information at theoutdoorseyeducator.com or follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to the Outdoorsy Educator Podcast.